During the opening credits to our story, we see several photos of a boy jumping into the film. A house arrest bracelet is getting attached to his leg. A probation officer named Stokes is the one who attached it. He tells our protagonist, Daniel, that the judge ordered the boy's computer to be confiscated. His IP address has also been tagged. If he tries to access social media with any device, it will signal Stokes. He says this with a smirk. In response, Daniel says he heard of a story about how a man went crazy on house arrest. He resorted to severing his foot so he could escape to Mexico. Stokes just laughs and says it's an urban legend. Outside the house, he tells Daniel he will stop by occasionally. He won't call before he does. As they both keep walking away from the house, Daniel's bracelet starts beeping. Stokes has to hold him back because of this. In 5 seconds, the bracelet's light will go red, he says. Then he instructs the boy he will have no or alcohol in the house. Plus, no contact with a girl named Mona Wilson. Afterward, we get to see inside the house for a short time. There is a wall with many ones and zeros on it to indicate someone is interested in computers. Daniel is currently lying in bed, looking at a comic book. Soon he looks at 3 disconnected wires near his computer. A ring at the door takes his mind off it. He opens it for 2 of his friends, telling them they should have used the fence. The boy named Kevin asks Daniel to show them his device. Once he does, he asks if they brought something for him due to him wanting to Skype his mom. So Kevin takes out a tablet for Daniel. The girl, Abby, says they buried the router as Daniel told them to. He also asks if they brought anything else. The next scene shows us what he was referring to as the trio sits near the pool and Daniel smokes. From their conversation, we learn he is obsessed with the aforementioned Mona, the girl Stokes forbade him to contact. He hacked every account she had. The only account he could not get into was her cloud. He simply wanted to get to know her. When Kevin asks if he tried calling her, Daniel says he can't talk to girls. This prompts Abby to mention the obvious, that she's a girl. But Daniel thinks he's a creep and his friends disagree. As they are leaving, Abby gives him a book she says she obtained. Later, alone in his house, Daniel looks at the book with interest, which is a yearbook. Upon looking at the photo of a certain girl, he closes the book. Then he plays an old Nintendo game. He stops because he hears something. Standing up to walk to the window, he gets distracted by a sound from behind. It causes him to approach a doll, checking if the sound came from it. However, it doesn't do anything. Subsequently, our attention is brought to many more computer wires being bundled together. Daniel is at his monitor, trying to connect to Kevin's tablet. After he connects, he gets onto Mona's account and requires a password. Therefore, he has to look through a sizable stack of papers for what the password could be. We see there are hundreds of words already crossed out, yet hundreds more that are not. Daniel hesitates to try typing in another possible password until he decides not to. Soon Abby calls him on video. She asks if his mom got online and he shakes his head. While they talk, Mona suddenly starts calling him. Due to how surprised he is, he cannot hear what Abby is saying anymore. Once he accepts the call, Mona instantly says it's not easy for her to talk to him. She never expected things to be like this. Furthermore, everything went wrong. The girl says he will feel what she feels before telling him to reach for the unknown. At this moment, she does something horribly unexpected and Daniel is forced to witness it. In the next scene, he is watching the television with teary eyes. His friends are beside him, all listening to the news of what he observed on his monitor. Then Daniel looks at the yearbook again, which has Mona's last words on it. When he gets to where Mona's photo should be, he sees a message there instead. He starts reading it to himself, with Abby finishing it for him. It's from a song, she says. Shortly after, they hear a car arrive, making his friends leave. Daniel comes to the front door and sees Stokes standing behind it, forming another smirk, as he sits inside Daniel's house. He says that whoever got a call from Mona took sophisticated steps to hide their identity. The forensic team was impressed, but he assures the boy that even the best leave a trace eventually. Stokes also says a thing like what Daniel witnessed can haunt someone forever. Keeping it a secret is poison. At a different time, Daniel is calling someone named Tina on the phone. He says he is Jason's son, and we see a note there with an insulting word near Jason's name. Soon enough, it seems like Tina hangs up on him. Later, Daniel is eating cereal. Something unpleasant appears in his mouth that he takes out. Upon doing so, he sees the object as a messy red thing. Looking back at his cereal, Daniel perceives it to be filled with what looks like. Disgusted, the boy quickly stands to spill the cereal on the floor, which now looks normal. Then he takes a pill and seems to down it with alcohol. A sound from outside takes his attention. It seems like someone tossed a package for him near his pool. Thus he collects it to open the box inside the house. To his seeming disinterest, it contains an angel candle, nothing more. Following this, a low, deep sound brings him outside to investigate what it is. Daniel slowly walks outside for some time, building the tension. Once he exits his backyard, he looks up at a post light. Many insects are flying around it and he sees the long trails they leave behind themselves. His bracelet starts beeping red, making Daniel step back. With that, the insects look normal now, absent of their unnatural trails. Back in the house, he sees the yearbook is open. Looking at it, the part where Mona's photo should be has a blue hooded figure instead of her. This person turns around in the photo to reveal a face that scares Daniel, making him fall to the floor. Then, he loses consciousness. While he's out, he gets strange visions. It took until morning for him to regain wakefulness. Abby is beside him, looking at the boy on the floor. There is near his head and she wants to call an ambulance. Since he refuses, she tends to his wound. Switching to Kevin in another room, he looks at a cabinet with candles on it. They have all melted to create a mess with their wax. The sole candle that did not melt is the angel candle. Then Abby gives Daniel a jar of little stars. She says there are 1,000 of them inside, which she folded. It is his birthday present from her. The boy does not know what to say. What prevents him from saying anything is the light bulb suddenly shattering to startle the duo. As the girl is picking up the shards, Daniel walks away. She notices he did not take her present with him. Shifting to Kevin, he's cleaning the wax from the candles. Soon Abby arrives to place the jar of little stars on the table. Unfortunately, she looks sad. At night, Daniel sleeps and a green light shines on him. It is the light from his 2 monitors having turned on. For a brief moment, we see Mona engaging in the act again that Daniel witnessed on one of the monitors. Abby's gift jar shatters in response. It causes Daniel to wake up in a panic. He doesn't see the person, but someone stands near him wearing a hood. In the morning, he hears strange sounds in the washroom. He also sees a crack forming slowly on the mirror. He must be thinking about what the explanation for this is. Later, we focus on the shattered jar and all of its contents on the floor. A dissatisfied Abby is there looking at it. Daniel tells his friends he thinks Mona is haunting him. The moment he says this, Abby cuts her finger on one of the shards. Then they enter the washroom to see the crack on the glass. Kevin asks Daniel if he took his medication last night. Of course, the boy points out the irrelevance of the inquiry in regards to the situation. When Abby leaves, Kevin says he understands this is a huge confusion for Daniel. However, what interests the boy is if Kevin believes him regarding the haunting. Kevin's thoughts on the matter are that Daniel's invasion of Mona's privacy does not warrant what she did on camera. Additionally, it does not earn him a haunting from her. It doesn't take long for Kevin to get upset, saying Daniel doesn't call them. All he does is sit at home and think about Mona. He thinks the girl was crazy. She never talked to anyone, perhaps because she thought she was better than them. Daniel defends her by saying she was misunderstood. Afterward, Kevin asks him if he knows how long Abby worked on those little stars. Daniel does not know what to say, yet it looks like he wants to say something. The next scene shows him looking at photos of him with his friends. In a particular photo, he zooms in on Abby, looking at her for several seconds. If an email arriving on his monitor did not interrupt him, who knows how long he would have kept looking at her. He checks the email and sees how unusual it is without even opening it. The message displays neither a sender nor a subject. Clicking on it shows him a message written in all capital letters, that he will feel what the sender feels. Those are the words Mona said in her video call. He tries to click the reply option, but the email somehow vanishes. The strangeness isn't over, because now he's hearing a song from a distance. So Daniel starts walking slowly to learn where the sound is coming from. He calls out to Kevin, only to receive no answer. Eventually, he comes to the source of the song, a phone placed inside a charger. He takes the phone and the song plays for a few more seconds prior to stopping. Confused, Daniel keeps walking cautiously until someone quickly passes him by. Then we see him outside, where Abby drives up to him. He says Mona is trying to hurt him like he hurt her. He also mentions the email he received along with him feeling Mona's presence. To witness the strange activities herself, Abby wants to stay the night with him. At a different hour, the duo is playing a Nintendo game together. When they finish, Abby proposes other things they could do. Since Daniel refuses to do them, she asks what he likes about Mona. She was perfect, he says. There is a certain feeling in his stomach every time he thinks of her. She asks him if that is all, and he thinks that's all love ever is. Abby's understanding is that love is about knowing how broken someone is, not how perfect they are. One knows the love is real once one no longer gets the feeling in the stomach. At this moment, they are about to kiss, but Daniel bails out. He stands alone elsewhere with his eyes closed, perhaps contemplating Abby's wise words. She, however, is lightly crying. Later, we see them lying in separate places. Daniel is able to sleep, whereas Abby does not have that luxury. Something is moving under the boy's blanket, causing him to awaken. He uncovers himself and sees his chest. Mona sits nearby, holding Daniel. His screaming makes Abby start rushing to him. He comes to her too with a knife in his hand. On his chest, there is a symbol, one that he might have carved if he was possessed. In the morning, Daniel says he wants to let Mona know he did not mean to hurt her. Him talking about how much he cares for her seems to almost bring Abby to tears. Kevin is there too, asking Daniel what he wants them to do. We don't get to hear the boy's response. We see it instead in the next scene as they cover the windows with a fabric. Abby reads from a website regarding how spirits should be dealt with. Some spirits won't move on because of their attachments to earthly pleasures. Others cling to strong emotions like love or revenge. Then the trio sits on the floor to perform a seance. Each of them has a piece of paper and a pencil. Daniel reads that they clear their minds of hindering thoughts while breathing in unison. When they start doing this, we see a fabric wavering rapidly. After Daniel says Mona's name, he says they have gathered to ask her why she hasn't moved on. He instructs his friends to hold their pencils, close their eyes, and wait for communication. So they all sit there, doing this. Suddenly, the three of them raise their pencils to simultaneously stab Abby in her hand. The poor girl screams in pain before all of them get slammed against a wall. Once it ends, Daniel comes to Abby for support. He also observes his name written on the wall with Abby's from her injured hand. Following this, Abby says they have to call someone about this incident, but Daniel tells her the absurd thing they would be forced to say to whoever they call. The boy is very troubled over not knowing what to do. No one can help them. The situation is entirely in their hands. Then, the group goes deeper into their engagement with removing the haunting. Cameras are now taped to the wall, delivering live footage to one of Daniel's monitors. He tells his friends he's okay to do this alone so they would not suffer with him. As Abby is climbing the wall to leave his house, Daniel calls out to her to thank the girl. He had to say something positive after all the bad things that happened to her. Later, we see Abby sitting in her room, where there are many photos of her friends pinned to her wall. Yet there seems to be more of Daniel than Kevin. Subsequently, we see Daniel with Abby in the former's swimming pool and they start kissing. While they do, someone stands near the pool to look at them. Unfortunately, life fluid starts coming out of Abby's mouth, causing Daniel to wake up from this nightmare. He instantly looks at the monitor to see nothing out of the ordinary. After he leaves the washroom, we see another crack forming on the mirror. Soon he sees the blue-hooded person standing in a room. He closes his eyes out of fear and starts backing away. Once he opens them, he sees the disturbing exit wound in the person's head. Needless to say, the person is Mona. Daniel's overwhelming fear pushes him to run out of the house. His bracelet starts going red, but he does not care at this point. We see Mona standing in his house, surrounded by a green light. During the day, Stokes arrives at the house while one policeman is already there. Daniel is sitting in his car. Stokes joins the boy by sitting in the backseat. He starts by saying he's been doing this job for so long that he doesn't remember anything else. He follows these words by saying most of the time when he looks at the file of a boy, he can see if it's too late for him. He has a good eye for darkness. Sometimes, though, he will look from the file and will be surprised if he can't perceive anything. Then, Stokes reveals that he knows Daniel was the one who was on the video call with Mona. He knows Daniel saw what the girl did. Before he leaves, Stokes says if one more signal comes from the device, it is out of his hands. Afterward, Daniel is back at home, drinking alcohol while watching the live recording of the house. Due to a glitch taking place on the monitor, he has to rewind to see what it was. Coming to it, he observes the live footage starting to erase from bottom to top until it erases completely. Soon he hears an insect buzzing around him, making Daniel smack the pest on his neck. However, once he looks at it in his hand, the insect is still alive. It enters Daniel's finger and he sees it crawling inside his arm. Of course, panic ensues, followed by Daniel using a knife to remove it. As he does, our view moves upward, where we see Mona. On the next day, his friends enter his house, looking for him. Instead of finding Daniel, they find his life. They also see footprints that they follow to the washroom. Daniel is lying there with an injured arm. Later, he informs his friends he is at a loss regarding what to do. Thankfully, Kevin finds information about totems on the internet. They need to have a personal item that has a positive resonance with the spirit. This item binds the spirit to the physical world. When Daniel's friends ride away, we see Stokes sitting in his car nearby, watching the activity. The next scene has Daniel's friends arriving at Mona's house in search of that personal item. Daniel keeps in touch with them over a video call and uses his hacker skills to feed them details about the house. He disarms the alarm, which allows Kevin to break into the house. As the duo walks inside, Daniel directs them where to go. Upon entering Mona's room, they see her life liquid on the wall. Kevin searches for something under her bed, only to find scissors covered with the same liquid. Then, Abby moves a curtain to the side to enter another area that looks like a closet. Daniel tells them the north wall of where they entered should not exist. Yet it does, and Kevin finds a sliding door on it. Opening it, the duo enters a secret room containing items that resemble witchcraft. A certain item has a symbol on it that was carved into Daniel's chest. This prompts the boy to put a sheet of paper on his chest to trace the symbol with a marker. After finishing, he puts the traced symbol in his scanner to do an image search on the internet. Back at Mona's house, the duo finds many photos of Daniel hanging from the ceiling. Kevin says she was stalking him. Soon we see Stokes is in the house too. Abby finds a note with a poem and reads it. At this point, this becomes too unnerving to Kevin, so he wants them to leave. Stokes is coming closer to discovering where the duo is. He finds the sliding door in the wall that should not exist, but the friends have already exited the room. They sneak past him in the closet. Meanwhile, Daniel finds the symbol on the internet. Clicking on it takes him to a document in which several such symbols are mentioned. The one he has on his chest has the name Falkaroth written under it. This gives him the idea to use this word to access Mona's cloud account, which he failed to access many times. Fortunately, it works and Daniel finds a PDF file with his name as its title. He opens it to see it's a witchcraft document. After he prints it, his two monitor screens start erasing from bottom to top again. What appears in their place is a repetition of the horrid video call Mona had with Daniel. He is forced to witness the vile act a second time. When his friends enter his room, he informs them about finding Mona's spell. She cast a second one on him. Looking at what Daniel printed, Abby says it's about inhabiting a body to form a union. The first step is to set a spirit free under the gaze of the one a person desires. The second step is to make the desired person read a verse that unlocks the first person's heart. Daniel remembers the verse he read in the yearbook that was in place of Mona's photo. The third step is to get the desired person to draw the symbol of the first person's goddess of choice. Daniel tells his friends he merely traced the symbol to do an image search. The fourth step is to make the desired person shed their own life, their own hand. We remember Daniel doing this when he was taking the insect out of his arm. Then Abby reads that if someone who loves the desired person performs the fifth step without doing the others first, the spell fails. Kevin asks what the fifth step is and they notice a swarm of insects forming below the ceiling. This is their cue to run out of there. Abby runs out of the house with Kevin, but the front door closes on Daniel. Green light starts shining, causing him to walk in its direction. Soon he approaches Mona in her robe, who says the words he would have loved to hear from a living version of her. Those words are that she loves him. At this moment, his friends have returned to try to get the boy's attention. However, he is mesmerized and thus incapable of hearing them. Mona forms a huge letter X and O on the glass with her power. With those letters carved, the glass can only stay intact for a few seconds before it shatters. They see Mona coming at them and the group starts running away. She blocks the exit with her psychokinetic ability, prompting our heroes to enter another room. Kevin asks again what the fifth step is. Abby lights the angel candle in the dark room to look at the sheet Daniel printed. The fifth step requires Daniel to burn a piece of the witch. Suddenly, all the chaos stops and the angel candle falls to the floor. Looking at it, Daniel sees it had a severed finger inside. He realizes it is Mona's, the witch. Kevin reminds them that if someone who loves the desired person does the fifth step, the spell fails. Since Abby lit the candle to burn the finger while being someone who loves Daniel, she was able to commit the fifth step without committing the others. Therefore, she stopped the spell. As the group is cleaning the place from the mess that was made, Kevin unexpectedly falls. Afterward, a flashback reminds us that Abby also read the verse in the yearbook with Daniel regarding the symbol of Falkara. Abby moved her finger along Daniel's chest to commit a tracing of it too. We are also reminded that she cut her finger on a shard from the jar she gifted to Daniel. Plus, she is the one who burned Mona's finger. So she knocks Daniel against the wall and turns to him with red eyes, saying Abby is gone. Mona was able to possess Abby to finish the spell through her. Then she comes to the unconscious Daniel to say she won't let anyone find them. She drags him away prior to covering his mouth with tape. Once he regains consciousness, something gets done to him that we don't see, but he suffers greatly from it. In the meantime, Stokes arrives at his house. After he lets himself inside, he sees Daniel's life on the floor. It leads the man to Daniel's severed leg with the bracelet on it. This ending scene reminds us of the story the boy told Stokes at the start of the film, about how a man resorted to severing his foot to escape to Mexico.